Hello friends, welcome back. My name is Dana and today I'm finally filming my video for Elta MD sunscreens. This video has been a long time coming. I tend to do this, I get overwhelmed and then I push it back, but you know what? It wasn't that bad to do, so I'm glad I finally got it done. So I'm not going to talk too much right now because we've got so many sunscreens. I think it's 10 to get into, or maybe 9. So we're going to just jump in. If you do enjoy this video while you are watching it, give it a big old thumbs up. If you're not already subscribed and you enjoy this kind of video, please do subscribe. It helps my channel immensely. And I think we should just get into it. Yeah, let's go. So first up, we are reviewing the Elta MD UV Restore. We have a tinted and a non-tinted version, which I'm going to be applying to both sides of my face so you can see the difference. I have the travel sizes because I did that when I could, just because I wanted to save some money. But if you are purchasing the full size, they come in a 1.7 fluid ounce size, which is 50 milliliters. The non-tinted retails for $45 and the tinted retails for $47. So in terms of my criteria, I had a few things. What is the SPF? For both of these, the SPF is 40. Did it have a cast? Obviously for the tinted side, it does not. For the non-tinted side, it does. Active ingredients, they have the exact same active ingredients, 15% zinc oxide and 2% titanium dioxide. So by that standard, it would be a mineral sunscreen. But if you look at the ingredient list, both of them do have butylactyl salicylate. So there are quite a few people out there that they just can't tolerate any chemical filters. So if you are one of those, these do both have it. Most people who know that they can't tolerate chemical filters will look at the ingredient list and look for certain ones that are kind of hidden in the ingredient list. Technically, these are both considered a hybrid, but of course, most brands don't tell you that, so they're going to label it as a mineral sunscreen. In terms of the finish for both of them, the non-tinted has, I would say, a little bit of a natural finish, whereas the tinted one actually has a little bit more of a glowy finish, but both of them have a very nice, even consistency. It feels very smooth, very satiny to apply, so it is quite easy to get kind of the application on pretty smoothly. As far as our pros for both of these, let's start with the non-tinted. It is fragrance free, it's also not greasy, and it's also oil free. Like I said before, both of them are thin and easy to apply. I had no issues really, especially with the tinted version, but even with the non-tinted version, you could see it took a little bit more to rub in. And of course, like I have a little bit of a more light medium skin tone, so you're going to see a cast on me, but if you have a light or fair complexion, you may not have a cast at all. Okay, so a little bit of the cons for both of these. So with the non-tinted one, there's going to be a white cast on most people if you are over like a fair light complexion, and that's, to some people it's not a con, they put makeup on over top, but it is a con for a lot of people. I also had instances where the non-tinted one pilled a little bit around my eye. That kind of depends on your skin type and also your skincare. Sometimes it depends on how your skin is kind of reacting that day. I haven't had that all the time, but I have had it a few times. And as far as the cons for the tinted version, I think it's one of those things where they do a one size fits all kind of for the tone. Now, Elta MD has started making deeper tints, but for the one that I have, I would say that it's probably not always going to work for all skin tones. And that is the case for a lot of tinted sunscreens. They just kind of, I would say they tend to pull a little warm. So for me, it worked okay. I could see a pretty clear difference on my neck when I applied it to my neck. It just kind of pulled a little bit warmer. So it's not really a one size fits all. I'm glad that they do have deeper ones now, but also it's like they have like this medium shade and a deep shade, but not really anything for the people with lighter or more neutral undertones. Now, as you can see in the video at the end, I had them both on each side of my face. So I had the tinted and the non-tinted. And what I did then was I just mixed them together. Now, this could be an expensive technique if you are buying the full size. You know, they're $45 and $47. For me, I have the travel sizes, which is nice. These are each a half of an ounce, so it's a little bit more economical. And they do have a very similar ingredient list, especially when it's the same ingredient list, a same like hybrid sunscreen or mineral sunscreen or chemical, and from the same brand, I don't mind mixing them, but I do prefer to actually layer. So if you're going to do that technique, what I would do is I would put down the non-tinted one first, one full layer, and then go in with the tinted over top. It's just a little bit more safe, but I think when it's from the same brand and the same actual formula, these are both UV Restore, it's a little bit safer. So that's what I did, and when I did mix them, I would say that that is how I prefer to wear these. But again, not always feasible if you're not wanting to spend $190 or whatever. So that is the UV Restore. All right, so this time we are reviewing the UV Physical and the UV Elements. So the Physical is what I put on first on the left side of my face. This retails for $44 and it comes in a 3-ounce container, which is 85 grams. So that's really cool. It is also SPF 41, which is kind of random, but okay. And it has 9% zinc oxide or 7% titanium dioxide. It does not have butyl salicylate, so this is 100% mineral. And if you are in that kind of, that's what you're looking for, then this is 100% mineral. As far as the finish, I would say it is natural. It does kind of dry down, but it has a little bit of a glow, but I have more normal combo skin, especially in the summertime, so it might look a little bit more glowy on me, but I think for a lot of people, it's kind of gonna set down a little bit quicker than some of the others. And then we have on the other side of my face, we have the UV Elements. I do have to caveat this and say this is the old formula. So there is some kind of outrage out there in the internet because they reformulated it and it now is called AOX Elements, and it's not the same. I'm going to do a video just comparing the old and the new, so be on the lookout for that. But the new formula, it's not as good for a lot of people. So just a little heads up on that. But I do have the older one, so I did want to talk about that. But I think it's a little bit kind of useless because you're not probably going to be able to find the old formula. It does retail for $45 and comes in 1.7 ounces. And in terms of the SPF, it is SPF 44. So we have 44 on one side of my face and SPF 41 on the other. And talking about the cast, I think it's pretty obvious to see the UV Physical, the one I have over here. This one has a slight cast. I do have a light medium skin tone. It actually, I think for the winter time and like for my neck and face when they are not tan, it's actually okay. And I wouldn't consider it a cast, but if you do have a deeper skin tone, it might have more of a cast on you. And then on the element side, there is no cast. I think it actually has one of the best undertones for me and it blends in very seamlessly. You just don't see anything. It blends in with my neck and my body and it's just perfect. In terms of the elements, that's the more tinted side. This one has 10% zinc oxide and 5.5% titanium dioxide. And I would say pretty similar. It's a more like natural finish. There's a slight radiance to both sides, but as I've been sitting here, it's not even been 5 minutes and they've kind of sunken in and they're not super radiant, super glowy. And when I touch my face, they feel like they have kind of set down a little bit. There's a slight greasiness to it, but it's not anything like out of this world. It's just my skin type. Okay, in terms of pros for both of these, for the UV Physical, this one is water resistant for 40 minutes. I love that. It's also oil free. We also have the UV Elements. That one is also water resistant for 40 minutes. It's moisturizing, but not greasy. And I would say they're probably both kind of like that. They feel like, you know, you're not gonna be dried out, you're not gonna be matte, but they're not too greasy. So it's this perfect combination in the middle ground. Also, the tint I think is gonna work for a lot of people. Like you can see the difference. If you are more light, like fair neutral shades, I would say that you would go with the UV Physical. If you have a little bit more of a tan, or if you just want to look a little bit tanner, the UV Elements. Of course, I'm still talking about the older version. I can't speak to the new version yet, but I will soon. As far as the cons to both of these, honestly, these are two of my very favorites. I love the UV Physical as kind of an outdoor one that I know it's going to be water resistant. I have a little bit of a cast, but not too much. In the wintertime, this is a great one for me. I think in the summer, you can see that it's just a little bit different than my body. It's not as tan, but it's still okay. And if I really just want to put like a little bronzer on over top, it's perfect. And then of course the UV Elements. This is a cult classic, the old formula. It's just one of those things that they messed with perfection. So I don't think there are a lot of cons for the UV Elements. I think it's pretty perfect, but it has been discontinued. So I'm very, very sorry to say that. I will be using this, but you know, it's one of those things where unfortunately you might not be able to get your hands on it. So I do want to mention one very sad thing, and I think they are reformulating the UV Physical, which is the one that has not been reformulated. But this one does contain what are called PFAS, PFAS, it's an acronym for the ingredient, and those are otherwise known as forever plastics. Not really a great thing that you want, especially for a mineral sunscreen. It's just not like, I mean, for any sunscreen really, but so it's probably not going to be something that I continue to use. I'll probably just discard it because I don't want to be using that. And then the other sad thing is because I can't repurchase this, it's not really something I can recommend. So both of these, while I think they are two of my absolute favorites from the brand, I won't be using the UV Physical, and I won't be able to repurchase the UV Elements in the same format. So it's a big bummer. So these are the UV Clear. UV Clear is probably one of Elta MD's best sellers, and I completely understand why. So we're going to talk about both the tinted and the non-tinted versions. So both of these cost $45, and they both come in the standard size, which is 1.7 fluid ounces, and they are both SPF 46. Both of them are also hybrid sunscreens. That means that they have 9% zinc oxide and 7.5% octinoxate, which is a chemical filter. As far as the finish for these, I would say that they have a little bit of a radiant finish, but they do dry down. So it's not going to be super radiant all the time. And it also does depend on your skin type. Because I have normal kind of combo skin, it does look a little bit more radiant on me than it may look on others. But it does tend to sit and dry down on the skin. So even me having it on for a few minutes, I can feel that it's sinking into the skin, but it does give me a very nice radiant glow. Let's talk about the pros for both of these. Let's start with the tinted side. So this one has a very nice, I say glass skin type glow. It's tinted, but it doesn't have a lot of coverage. So if you are looking for more coverage, this is probably not the one for you. It does just kind of cancel out any white cast from the zinc oxide, but it's going to be a very sheer amount of coverage. Both of them are very easy to blend. I feel like they have a very nice consistency. It's not super thin, it's not fluid per se, but it's not hard to blend. There's no streaks, especially on the tinted side. On the non-tinted side, the cast is gone pretty immediately, especially for a hybrid sunscreen. Sometimes they do have more of a cast if it's non-tinted, so I like how easy it is to blend and apply, and those are definitely two benefits for both of them. And then I would say, if you're looking for a more dewy look, both of these are going to have that, but it kind of depends on your skin type. I have normal combo skin, so it's going to look a little bit more radiant on me. But like I said before, they do kind of set down a little bit, and they are nice underneath makeup. So if you're wanting to put something on over top, they're so thin that it's just easy to apply something over top. All right, and as far as the cons, it's kind of two sides of the coin for them. If you are a little bit of a deeper skin tone, the non-tinted side is probably going to have a little bit, maybe not a cast on you, but it may pull a little cool or ashy, and it might not work with your skin tone. Now, as far as the tinted side, it's again one of those things, because this one, I think this one only has one shade. It may have actually the deeper shade now, but if you are a lighter skin tone, it is definitely, I would say it pulls a little bit more warm. So if you like that neutral undertone like I showed you with the UV Physical, that one it's not going to have that. This one definitely pulls a little bit more orange. I do feel like it kind of oxidizes a little bit. I tend to see that around the hairline and then on my neck. It's not terrible, but again, it's that pulling warm aspect of it that may not work for as many people. But I can understand exactly why this is one of their best sellers. It's just easy. I think people forget that it has those chemical filters, and it does have 7.5% octinoxate. So it's a good reason why it is more fluid and easy to blend than maybe some of your typical mineral sunscreens. So that is UV Clear. Okay, let's talk about the UV Sheer and the UV Shield. So the UV Sheer is what I put on first. That retails for $35. It comes in 3 ounce or 1.7 ounces. So there are 2 different sizes, which is nice. And then the UV Shield, which is the one that I put on secondly, is $38 and it comes in 3 ounces. And it comes in either 1.7 ounces, and I think also they have a larger 3-ounce size as well. As far as cast, both of them do have a slight cast. I wouldn't say it's the worst I've ever seen, but also it's hybrid, so I've seen better. And in terms of our protection, we have SPF 50 plus with the sheer and SPF 45 with the shield. Both of them, like I said, are hybrids. We have 9% zinc oxide and 7.5% octinoxate in the shield, which is the second one I put on. And then the sheer, we have 10% octocrylene and 15% zinc oxide. The sheer also does have butyl salicylate in it, but again, this one is a hybrid, so that shouldn't concern you unless you really have a sensitivity to that ingredient. In terms of finish, I would say both of them have a pretty natural finish. They have a little bit of radiance to it, but it's nothing too crazy, and they do sink into the skin and feel a little bit more set than some of the more glowy sunscreens out there. I don't think either one has a matte finish, so if you don't like that feel, it's not going to feel like that, but it's not going to be too greasy. It's that just perfect natural middle ground. In terms of pros for both of these, the UV Sheer, which was the first one I put on, that one is water resistant for 80 minutes, which I love. I also love how, I guess sheer is the right word, but more like fluid the sunscreen is. It has a very liquidy consistency, which is one of my favorite things, especially when you do have more of a cast sometimes. It just helps in blending it out more. Again, I like how easy that texture makes it to apply, and I think it's a really good option for somebody who wants something that is very long lasting and water and sweat resistant. 80 minutes is the highest that we have for any of the Elta MDs. In terms of pros for the shield, I don't really have any. I think it's okay. I think that the finish actually is more my preference. So I said I don't have any, and now I'm telling you my pros. I do like the finish probably the most. And as far as like the white cast goes, it had a lot, and it has more of a kind of thicker cream consistency, but as it sat, like I feel like the cast went away almost immediately. So if you do want something that kind of shears out into something with no cast, this is a good option. And then, like I said, this finish is one of my favorite finishes. It's just very natural, not too matte, not too glowy. I feel like I have more glow from the sheer side than the shield side. So for me, I would prefer the shield over the sheer just for that fact. And in terms of cons, I mean, I think the main con really is that they do have a cast. So if you see me now, like my skin tone, my body is quite tan, and I do get tanner in the summertime. So if you do have a light medium to above skin tone, if you're just planning to wear these without any makeup or bronzer or anything, you're probably going to have a cast. So those are the main cons. Other than that, it's really a consistency thing. If you don't like a sheer consistency, liquidy consistency, then I would go with the shield. That was the second one I applied. If you do like that very fluid consistency, it would be the sheer. So it's not really a pro or a con, it's more like a preference, but I like to show what they look like, and then you get to choose for what you like and what fits your style. So and those are those two. I think they're really good options. Me personally, if I have to choose with a hybrid, I want one that has a little bit less of a cast. So for me, the shield would be the better option. Okay guys, so the last one that I have for us is the UV Daily. This comes in a tinted version as well, which I do not have, but that is an option as well. This one retails for $39 and you get 1.7 fluid ounces, standard amount. It's SPF 40 and it again is a hybrid. So this one has 9% zinc oxide and 7.5% octinoxate. So those are pretty much the standard percentages I feel like they do for most Elta MDs that are hybrids. So that doesn't differ with this one either. And in terms of our finish, again, I think what my favorite part about a lot of the Elta MD finishes is that they look pretty glowy when you first apply them, but really in the end, you have a very natural, very skin-like finish. So nothing that's too dewy, nothing that's too matte, it just looks like skin. Now this one does have a cast though, as you could see, but it is quite minimal, And I think as I rubbed it out and then as the time has gone on, it's been a few minutes since I applied it, the cast is pretty much gone. So if you do have a deeper skin tone, you may need sunscreen, or not sunscreen, excuse me, bronzer or makeup, because it's not gonna necessarily cover or work for all skin tones. I have a light medium and then my body is pretty tan. So you can see there's a very noticeable difference. So for me to wear this one outside of the house, I would need to put on a bronzer or some makeup because it does have a little bit of a cast. Now, if I were wearing it in the winter, it probably would be fine. But it just depends on your skin tone and maybe what you're kind of like, how deep you are or light you are at that time of the year. So as far as pros for this one, they say that it is for combo dry skin. And I think that actually kind of tracks. I think it definitely could work for people that do have more combo skin. Like I have normal combo and I feel like this is sitting perfectly. There's almost like a little bit of a velvet feel to it. So like a natural velvet finish, which is really nice, but it doesn't feel matte at all, which is why I say if you do have drier skin, it could also work for you. If you do have drier skin, I would just recommend putting it on over your normal like vitamin C serums, moisturizer, that kind of thing. If you have more oily skin, you might not need to put as much skincare on underneath. I do like that they have a tinted version. I can't speak to that, which is a shame, but you know, I tried to get as many of these as I could and I spent a lot of money doing that. So maybe I will get the tinted version and kind of see what that looks like. If you're interested, let me know. And as far as cons, I think the main one that kind of I go back to over and over for a lot of these Elta MD sunscreens is that it is going to have a cast on certain skin tones. So the deeper you are, if you're not using a tinted version, this one is going to have a cast or it's just going to look a little ashy on you. You can see for me, like I look like a little sickly. And that's probably just because of my tan. That difference makes me look a little pale and like ghostly, but I'm not mad at it actually in person, and I would just put a little like tinted moisturizer or bronzer or whatever on over top and it would look beautiful. So I would say more pros than cons for this one, and it's actually quite a favorite of mine. So I really do like the daily. Oh, and I forgot to mention, when I was first applying it, I pumped out like 5 pumps on my finger, and that's actually way more than what you need. So I tested it and it's like 2.5 pumps gets you 1/4 teaspoon. So I put on more than I needed. So if you put on a little bit less, it might not even have a cast on you depending on your skin tone, but I just wanted to throw that out. It's always the safest to use your 1/4 teaspoon, and then you either know how many pumps it is or you just know you're getting the correct or recommended amount. All right, guys, so that was all of them. I hope you enjoyed seeing what they looked like applied, me talking through all the specs, the pros, cons. I think that should be helpful because my biggest thing, and this is really like into my final thoughts of this video, but one of the things that I've always found really difficult about Elta MD is that they're so hard to tell apart. The packaging all looks the same, like very similar. All you can tell is the difference in the name, sometimes in the SPF. The price is a little bit, but it's like they don't really tell you what they are. I mean, just like let's take for example UV Elements, and then we have UV Shield. I don't know, like that doesn't tell me a lot. So I think this type of video should help. Obviously everything will be time-stamped if you're interested, but let's get really into my final thoughts on what I think of the brand and what I think of my favorites and my least favorites. So I guess the biggest thing is I've never really been drawn to Elta MD. I find it to be a bit overhyped. I think it's because dermatologists tend to recommend it, and they always say on all the packaging it's good for post-procedure kind of skincare, and it's very sensitive skin friendly, which I don't doubt those things to be true. I just find that Elta MD probably started back when there just weren't as many options, and now that there's so many options, you can find almost all of these in a different sunscreen or from a different brand, and maybe even cheaper, often cheaper, and a lot of the times a better option. So I think it's just kind of, it hasn't kept up with the times. And I think there's also this kind of prestige seen by like it being in a dermatologist's office, or in like if you go to get a procedure done, it being there makes it like kind of stand out. But I don't think that really should be the case. And I think it's, you know, a lot of marketing that they sell directly to dermatologists, and it helps them and it helps the dermatologist. But I think there's some really good options out there that aren't from this brand. The other thing that I wanted to kind of mention is I feel like a lot of the dermatology sunscreens, which I have done a few videos on, are dupes for a lot of these. A lot of the dermatology are also hybrid sunscreens, and I think it's something like, if you can't stand the $45 price tag, which is fair, I think these are more like $25. So I don't know exactly which is a match for each one, and I don't have all of the dermatology sunscreens anymore, but it is something to look into if you're interested in kind of maybe a cheaper option. And the last thing that I kind of wanted to talk about is that a lot of these are hybrid. Now, I don't have a problem with hybrid sunscreens at all, but I feel like the brand kind of skirts that fact. There's nothing wrong with a hybrid sunscreen. Hybrids are great. They have a lot of really high protection. But I think a lot of the times when you see it being offered from a dermatologist's office, you kind of have this like viewpoint that maybe it's going to be more like natural, more mineral, and it's not really the case. And even their mineral sunscreens, they have 4 of them. Those were the first 4 that I reviewed. 2 out of the 4 are actually hybrids because they do have butyllactyl salicylate. And one of the other ones is discontinued in the format that I had it. And then the other one that is a mineral sunscreen has those PFABs in it. So really no great options anymore for the totally mineral sunscreen options. I just said options twice. But that's what I mean. Like, I think there's kind of a stigma, and I don't think there's anything wrong with hybrid, but I also don't think that these are maybe the best hybrids that exist on the market. They're just kind of hyped up because they are Elta MD. So kind of a mixed bag on the hybrid thing. It's not a bad thing, it's not a good thing, it's just a thing that they don't really tell you about. Okay, so now let's get into my favorites. This is a little hard because some of them are so similar, but if I'm going to choose 3, because that is what I have to do, I have to narrow it down, I would choose, my number 1 would be the old UV Elements. Unfortunately, since that is not sold anymore and they have repurposed it or reformulated it, I will kind of take that out of the consideration in running, and then I will choose 2 or 3 new ones. And it kind of shocked me when I thought about it, because I really like the UV Clear line. UV Clear is also one of their best sellers. I think it's the one that most people get when they are getting Elta MD. So they do live up to the hype for me. I have the tinted and the non-tinted. I love that the tinted one has such a minimal tint, and it doesn't really have any extra coverage. So it's not really like a foundation, it's more just like a tinted sunscreen. And then I like the clear one, the clear non-tinted, for the dry down and the finish. Both of them I like the finish, but I like the tinted's actual tint and shade to it. So the UV Clear, I'm gonna mark both of these as 1 and 2. I don't really have a preference of tinted or non-tinted, just kind of depends on my mood. And then for the third one that I'm going to put into this category, it was really a tie, so I'm gonna mention both of them. But the UV Sheer, I love that it's waterproof. I love that it's 80 minutes water resistant. I guess not waterproof, water resistant. And the cast is not as bad as some of the others, but it's also not the best. But if it's something that I'm just looking for, like that water resistant aspect, this is what I'm gonna choose, especially with that very fluid texture. And then the other one that I really enjoy is the UV Daily. Kind of like the name suggests, this is a good option for everyday use. It does have a cast, but the way that I like to wear it is I put this on and then I put a tinted, like a, what's it called, bronzing drops or something like that. And that's a really good option. Or you can just put another like foundation or tinted sunscreen on over top. But this is a very good all-purpose, not a minimal. It has a very like natural finish, and I do like that it feels moisturizing without feeling too glowy. All right, now I'm only going to list the two of my like least favorites, and the reason why is one I did not talk about, which is the UV Glow. This has actually been discontinued, and then they put in the UV Luminous, which is, I guess, the newer version. First of all, when I got this, I could never use it. Like, nothing pumps out, like it's broken. And then when I did get something out, it was like curdled, and it was brand new. So that's not an option. And then the other one that sadly would have been one of my very favorites is the UV Physical. I love the cast on this. I love that it dries down a little bit more matte. But like I said, it does have those forever plastics in it. And I think they're reformulating it, but for that purpose, or for that reason, I just can't recommend it. And sadly, I'll probably be throwing this out because I don't want that on my body. So, yeah. So that kind of leaves us with these three, which are the UV Shield and then the 2 UV Restores. There's nothing wrong with them. I think they're just the middle of the ground. I did like the UV Shield, how I feel like the white cast was actually more minimal than the UV Sheer, but I don't love that consistency. It's just not something I'm gonna reach for. And then the UV Restore, I don't remember them. It's like one of those things where I'm like, if I don't remember it, it's probably just mediocre. Okay guys, did I cover everything? Let's see. I think so. If I didn't, please let me know. Oh, I forgot one thing. I didn't cover a few sunscreens. I didn't cover the spray. There's a mist, a stick one. Let's see, the luminous, and then the UV facial. So those are other options. I did not get the complete range, but I feel like I got like the most favorite ones. So I hope you understand, and you know, these were all purchased with my own money. So have a little empathy on my wallet. Anyway, this one's a long video, so I hope you did enjoy, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.